the abdominal organs, and all the patients that I've seen were from gunshot injuries, so bullet injuries. Another patient with in a very critical condition, again with chest and abdominal injuries. So, you know, a broad mixture, but the ones that I've seen certainly have all been gunshot injuries.
There's been a dramatic escalation of the Israeli military's targeting of Gaza City in the north of the Strip. Over the past 2 days, warplanes have bombed and destroyed at least 70 residential buildings in that city. Entire families have been killed in some of those strikes. Schools that were housing displaced Palestinians have also been attacked. Gaza City was once a bustling commercial hub of the Strip, and now entire neighborhoods are in ruins. The Israeli army has issued forced expulsion orders for residents with the stated aim of displacing civilians to the south so it can capture and hold more land in the north. Our correspondent Hani Mahmoud is in Gaza City and takes a look at the destruction.
This is Gaza City today, once a home to thousands of Palestinians, now a graveyard to concrete and dust. Relentless airstrike targeted and flattened 70 residential buildings. These were not military compounds, they were apartment blocks, they were homes. They housed hundreds of Palestinian families who are now sleeping in the streets, in temporary shelters, or not at all. This building behind me held over 40 people. One moment they were breaking bread together, and the next they are running for their lives or buried underneath the rubble of the bombed buildings. And the worst part, the bombings do not stop. The aftermath of these bombings and relentless attacks is just there are no safe shelters left. There are no safe zones and no escape. Every displacement, as we've seen over the past weeks, just pushing families further into desperation and deepening homelessness with the lack of sense of safety.
What happened was that all of a sudden we saw people running. We asked what's going on. People said it's evacuation for the building behind. The building was bombed and caused all this damage, and we could not take any of our belongings. There was no Hamas in the area, just business owners and stores.
Okay, so just walking through the rubble, you easily realize this is not a humanitarian crisis. It's a dismantling of civilian life across the Gaza Strip. Every home that is destroyed, it's not just about the buildings that are being destroyed, it's the futures, the histories, as well as the dreams of people who once lived inside these homes. It's more than just a crisis. It's breaking a whole entire society. A combination of enforced starvation and relentless attacks, Gaza is being made unlivable, one home and one neighborhood at a time. And the world must not look away. Hani Mahmoud, Al Jazeera from Gaza City, Palestine.
As all this is happening in the Strip, ceasefire negotiations are still underway. Qatar and Egypt have issued a joint statement saying they're intensifying efforts to try and solve points of contention in the ceasefire talks. Hamas says it's ready for talks, and that's after the group called for the changes to the latest version of a ceasefire plan, which has been backed by both the US and Israel. Al Jazeera has obtained the response put forth by Hamas late on Saturday. The draft includes a 60-day ceasefire in Gaza, and under the deal, 10 Israeli captives would be released in 3 stages. The bodies of 18 deceased captives would also be returned. Hamas's proposal would secure the unconditional entry of aid into Gaza through the UN and its agencies. It also states that negotiations on a permanent ceasefire would begin on day 1. And Hamas wants the Trump administration to guarantee the talks towards reaching a final settlement to the war. Marwan Bashara is Al Jazeera's senior political analyst, and he says Israel is trying to weaken diplomatic efforts to reach a deal.
I actually don't see a way out except if Netanyahu gives up on some of his conditions, because I think Hamas's position now is at its bare minimum, meaning already it's showing signs of despair. And because of the horrific price that the people in Gaza are paying, it has been willing to make a good number of concessions, but I think maybe it has reached a limit. In the meanwhile, I think while probably the likes of Steve Witkoff are trying to bridge the differences, trying to find a formula out, my sense is that we are no longer in the good cop, bad cop logic between Witkoff and Netanyahu, but rather Netanyahu is now playing Witkoff, embarrassing Witkoff. And I think it is, and here I'm speaking analytically, not based on any information, that perhaps Netanyahu is trying to weaken Witkoff because Witkoff is way ahead on the talks on Iran nuclear deal in a way that does not please Netanyahu. So I think Netanyahu is weaponizing the diplomacy in Palestine, not only to continue with the bombings, but also to discredit Steve Witkoff's negotiations with the Iranians.
Well, Israel's army says it's intercepted yet another missile fired from Yemen. Yemen's Houthis say they were targeting Ben Gurion Airport in Tel Aviv. Most missiles fired by Yemen's Houthis have been intercepted. One bypassed defences and struck Tel Aviv last month. Earlier this week, Israel attacked Yemen's main airport in the capital, Sana'a, and has threatened further attacks if the Houthis continue to target Israeli territory. Exit polls in Poland's tightly contested presidential runoff election indicate that the result is too close to call. The election could have a major impact on the nation's future role in the European Union. The mayor of Warsaw, Rafał Trzaskowski, is up against the conservative historian Karol Nawrocki. Trzaskowski has promised to promote constructive ties with European partners, while Nawrocki is a skeptic of EU integration. Both candidates support aid to Ukraine, but Nawrocki opposes NATO membership for Kyiv. Hashim Harabara has more now from the Polish capital of Warsaw.
We all knew it was going to be a tight race, and the exit polls indicate that Trzaskowski, the centrist candidate, is leading by a very slight margin, less than 1%, followed by the conservative candidate Karol Nawrocki. But for Trzaskowski, this is quite a significant moment. He seems to be confident that he has been elected president of Poland, and he said that he's going to build bridges with everybody and that he's going to be president for all the Poles. On the other side of the city, there was a gathering of supporters of the conservative candidate Nawrocki, who didn't concede defeat and said that the race is far from over. This came against the backdrop of an ever-growing divide between the conservatives, backed by the far right, who are Eurosceptics and who believe that Ukraine should never be part of the EU and NATO. On the other hand, you have the centrists backed by the liberals, who believe that this could be their moment to build bridges with the European Union. We'll have to wait and see what happens when the Election Commission announces the final official results. But as far as the centrists, this is a new chapter, a new beginning for them, and they believe that this could be a rare opportunity for Prime Minister Donald Tusk to deliver on the promises he made in 2023, which is basically the need to introduce major reforms of the judiciary in particular and embrace European ideals and European values. Hashim Al-Barra, Al Jazeera, Warsaw.
Mexico is holding its first ever judicial elections. Voters have a big task ahead of them, choosing their entire Supreme Court, as well as nearly 3,000 other judicial posts. No other country in the world has held judicial elections of this scale. And while the government says it's necessary to root out corruption, critics say it's politicizing what should be an impartial role. John Holman joins us now live from Mexico City. So, John, this could have some profound implications for the country going forward. What's the view of the people where you are?
We've been speaking to both sides actually today. We've been speaking to the people heading into this voting booth behind us, and for them, yeah, it's a chance to root out corruption. Everyone's got a story of a judge who made their permit application longer than it should be unless they were giving a bribe, and that is a problem at the local level, especially of the judiciary in Mexico, not so much at the federal level. So they're hoping that this can change all of that, that all of those judges will basically be cast out and a new set of fresher judges that aren't so implicated in all of that, can come in. That's the hope for the people that support this and are coming in to vote. On the other side of it, the people that are protesting against this say, well, this is really the only branch of government that's opposed the ruling party, Morena, or been a sort of a pebble in its shoe, something that's got in Morena's way when it's gone for some controversial reforms in the country, and that's going to be taken away. They think that this voting process will just be manipulated so that, especially in the Supreme Court, Morena favouring judges will get in those chairs. So it's really been polemic in the country.
So, John, how's the voting going? And there were concerns that turnout might not be that high.
Yeah, I've just been telling you about how polemic it's been, but actually on the day of, a lot of people have stayed away from the polls. This has pretty much been the case where we've been all the way through. Not that this is a Morena heartland in the Cuauhtemoc neighborhood in Mexico City, but we have heard reports from across the country of largely empty or just a trickle of voters coming into polling booths. And that's due not just to opposition, a lot of people staying away because they just don't agree with this and that it's the way forward, but also we're talking about electing judges. They're not like political candidates where they can give out a real manifesto that they're going to clean up crime or help homelessness or unemployment in the city. These are people that are basically saying, well, I'm going to impart justice. And as that has been the case, there's not really a platform for them to